Rounding a number to a stated number of significant figures is a pretty straightforward process. Now, like I said, it usually involves cutting a number back to, like it says, the most significant digits. So there could be times when digits will be replaced with zeros, just like you saw with ordinary rounding. And the concept of the first digit that you're going to round, that you're going to cut off or replace with a zero, if it's 5 or more, then you will round up the previous digit. Just be aware of things like rounding to sig figs is not the same as rounding to the same number of decimal places. When I say 3 significant figures, it doesn't mean 3 decimal places. So make sure you're really aware of that. What is the process? Like I said, it's very simple. Step 1, identify where you're going to count from. That's your first non-zero digit. And for most numbers, that's the first digit. That's the digit at the front. It's only when you've got this situation here where your first non-zero digit is that 2. It's not the very first digit, but it's the first non-zero digit. And you count the number of significant digits thereafter. And round off or replace digits with zeros. So in this example, 123.45, it clearly has 1, 2, 3, 5 significant figures. In 0.023, it only has 2 significant figures, so we count from the first non-zero digit. When we're rounding a number to a given number of significant figures and that number is greater than 1, we will need to fill in some spaces with zeros. So if I've got the number 12,345 and I am instructed to round it to 2 sig figs, I count from the first non-zero digit, which is the 1. It's sort of like I'm going to cut off here and replace everything else with zeros. And the first digit I'm cutting off is a 3, so that has no impact on the 2. So my rounded number to 2 sig figs is 12000. In a similar way, 33,056 rounded to 3 sig figs means I'm going to cut it off here. Now the 5 will impact on the 0 this time because it's like with all rounding techniques, we need to look at the first digit that you're cutting off. When it's 5 or more, we round the digit in front of it up, so it becomes 331 and replacing the digits with zeros. Decimals greater than 1, a little bit different because we don't put zeros after the decimal point. These are really key points. These are the things that need to go in your summary and key points section. And of course, some of these examples would be good to include as well. Now, to round this number to 2 sig figs, it has all these decimal places. We don't replace the decimal point part of it, and it just becomes 2 sig figs. It will become 120. With this number 7.891011, following the instruction to round to 2 sig figs, I will still maintain 1 decimal place. And when we look at the first digit that we need to then cut off, which is the 9, means that, yes, we have to round the 8 up to a 9, and we have 7.9. Now, this is a case where, again, we don't fill all those other spaces with zeros. It's really important. that you do not put zeros after the decimal point unless these zeros are part of the count. So let's have a look at the next one. To 4 sig figs, we're going to cut off here. And when you cut off a 9, because we're cutting off there because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's my sig figs. And 9 will mean this 7, 9 rounds to 80. I'll just sit it here. Now, this instruction, do not put zeros after the decimal point, has a qualifying bit, unless these are part of the count. This is a good example for that, because that 0 there comes after the decimal point, but it is part of the count. It has to be included in your rounded number, so it's 56.80. Now, with the numbers that are less than 0, our first digit we come to is a 0, so it's not part of the count. And in this case, you can see in this example, the second digit to come to is also a 0, so it's not part of the count yet. We would say that that number there has 1, 2, 3, 4 significant figures, but if we're instructed to round it to 2 sig figs, we're going to cut off here. The 6 will impact, that we're cutting off, will impact on the 5, and as you can see, it's gone to a 6. With this one, we would say in its first form, it has 3 significant figures, and again we're asked to round it to 2, and so that means we're going to cut off that last 8, will impact on the 9, and again send that to 80, and we do need the 0 because it is part of the count. However, if we were instructed to go to 1 sig fig, we could drop that last 0 off. And rounding this final number to 1 sig fig means we will cut off there. The 6 will impact on the 4, round it up, which means we must increase it by 1. So to 1 sig fig, that rounds to 0.05. Now, there's quite a few things I've emphasised there, and they should be listed here in your summary. And you should be right to do 503, and I'd like you to do all of them.